Yeah. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chad Yoshinaga. I work for NOAA Fisheries. I've been with NOAA for about 22 years now, primarily with monk seals, do a little bit of dolphins and whale work, but I've spent about 11 summers out in Memphis. This talk is a little different. When Helani asked us to do this, usually we talk about monk seal biology. But this is something that we usually don't talk much about, is what it takes to do monk seal biology. And so there'll be a little bit of monk seal stuff in there. The rest of the month, you're going to have different talks set up to talk more about the specific program. Next week, Charles Littman, who's the head of the monk seal program, is going to talk about drones. We're not supposed to use the word drones. They're unmanned aerial systems. But then everybody goes, "Oh, you mean drones?" And I say, "Yeah, that's drones." And he's going to talk about what we do with the drones. The following week, Mark Sullivan is going to talk a little bit about how social media is helping us get the word out. When I started back in the 1900s with the program, the majority of the seals were, the majority in the Northwestern Hawaiian Islands, and so we were there wasn't Facebook, there was email. I guess there was email, but. It was mostly up there, and it was kind of, nobody really knew much about them. And once in a while, you get a sighting in the main island somewhere. But even back then, we realized that, if the population were to start increasing, which is our whole goal, was to get the population back, we're going to have these human interactions, and education was a key. And so, we're always kind of behind the ball here a little bit, but utilizing social media to get the word out. And that's kind of what he's going to talk about. And then Stacey Robinson, who is our ecologist, is going to talk about behavioral conditioning and how to, again, kind of hopefully use some of these techniques to modify their behaviors and hopefully guide them to salvation, to avoid dangerous situations. So today, we're going to talk about getting there, what it takes to get there, some of the risks, and definitely the rewards of the work that we do, kind of a general introduction. Okay. And please, if you have any questions during the talk, ask them. I think I get, people, I want to be interactive. This is real informal. Ask if you come up with anything during this presentation. So just some brief, quick background. Population right now is about 1,100 seals. There's approximately 900 in the Northwestern Hawaiian Islands and about 200 in the main islands or so. Those are kind of the round numbers we use. The Northwestern Hawaiian Island numbers are declining still at about 5% annually. The main island numbers are actually increasing, but not enough to offset the decline. So we're still on a downward kind of path. People always ask this, what do they eat? They mostly eat fish. Occasionally you'll see squid, octopus, lobsters. We know this by two major ways. We pick up their poop. That's one of the things we do in the field. We pick up poop and we figure out what's left in that, and we can kind of see what they're eating. We've recently done a lot of critter cam work where we actually glue cameras onto the backs of seals, and we got amazing video of them fishing, catching fish, occasionally an octopus, things like that. So that's kind of what they're foraging on. Reproduction. This ties directly into the planning for our work in the Northwestern Hawaiian Islands. We don't have people out there year round. We've tried logistically, and we'll talk about the logistics of getting people out there, but it's difficult. The weather out there can be very rough during the winter times, especially. And so we strategically place people on the Northwestern Hawaiian Islands in field camps during the reproductive period, because that's when we get the most information during that time. All the females are back, pupping. We can identify animals. We can tag the new pups. And so that's kind of where we place our field camps. So usually we'll have people out there. It used to be a longer season. We used to put people out in March and then bring them back in August. Now it's usually from about May to August, September. The ship actually just returned. Jessie Lopez, sitting in the back here, is our chief scientist. She's worked with me for, 9 years now? 10 years now, sorry. Seems like just yesterday. But she was our chief scientist. She runs the scientific portion of the mission, and they just picked up all the camps actually and brought them all back. So. And of course, you got to put the cute pictures up of the seals. Just to give you an idea of what we're talking about, this can be people get deceived by the distances we're talking about here. There's our main islands, main 8, right? And this is the rest of the Hawaiian Island archipelago, and it's going to stretch from Nihoa all the way up to Kuri. It's about 1,500 nautical miles, and so you're talking a great distance. I had a field staff, a summer hire, come in one year, and we're prepping. Hired her, flew in from California, prepping to get all the gear ready. You know, about a week before we were leaving, we start thinking about going over the ship and load the ship. And she goes, "Oh, so how long are we going to be on the ship?" And I said, "Oh, you're on Laysan, which is there." I said, "It's going to probably take you about 6 days to get there." And she goes, "6 days? I thought we were going to be on the ship for 3 hours." So even we can be deceived at the distances we're talking about. Let's see, what else is there? And so from Nihoa to Midway is, well, the whole thing is a Hanauma Marine National Monument. From Nihoa to Midway is run jurisdiction. What's the right word? I don't know what the right word is, but basically Fish and Wildlife it's a federally protected. Yeah, the Kuri is still owned by the state of Hawaii. It's actually Honolulu County, if I'm not mistaken. And so, yeah, so I think Honolulu County is supposed to be like one of the biggest counties in the nation, because we're talking 2,000 miles. Okay, and so let's see. And so this is, we definitely take a, I wouldn't want to say a militaristic approach to what we do, but, you know, this is Jesse actually found this the first person who supposedly said this was General Bradley, which is true. You know, logistics is what we're looking at, and mobilizing and getting enough food, water, supplies, toilet paper, you know, tents from point A in Honolulu all the way up to all the different islands, and then getting it ashore, and then getting it set up, and making sure that once we leave them, they won't see us for 3 months, or that they won't see a ship for 3 months. They have everything they need to survive and do the work that we're trying to do. So we have white gallon buckets, which are great. They float, they are watertight, and getting them from Honolulu all the way out to the northwest. It's good to be the king, by the way. And how do we get there? Primarily, we have 2 NOAA vessels, the Oscar Elton Seti. Oscar Elton Seti was the first director of our fishery science here in Honolulu. The Oscar Seti they're both Tiegos class, 224-foot Tiegos class vessels. They are retired Cold War submarine hunters. And so we basically bought them from the Navy. They're up in the Mississippi in freshwater. They're mothballed. We outfitted them, refit them. We have about 6 of these in the NOAA fleet across the nation. And so we refit them and put them into research vessels. And so the SETI replaced our older vessel, the Townsend Cromwell. And the Hialakai it's a NOS, it's a National Ocean Science vessel that's stationed here, but we do use it. We do a lot of joint projects with them. And so this year, we deployed our field camps with the Hialakai, and we brought them back with the SETI. And so Jesse was the chief scientist on both ships. Just some background for the ship, since we're talking logistics. Cruising speed is about 10.5 knots on a good day, going downhill with the wind at our back. They're a little slower than that. They were actually built, they're sub-hunters, so they were built quiet and comfortable. And so, you know, because these guys are on there for months chasing subs around during the Cold War. And so it was really comfortable. We shortened some of the berthing, and we doubled up the bunks, and, you know, because we needed to get more people. We needed people now. We needed to be able to carry scientists. So we refitted it quite a bit. But it has a pretty good range, 30-day endurance. So the ships, when they're not doing Monsieur work, they'll go down to Samoa, go over to Guam and Saipan, do some work there. They can stay out for 30 days. It's really a really comfortable research vessel. And so you can imagine, the crew. So we have 5 commissioned officers. We have about 18 crew. So you're talking engineers, stewards, deck department, right? Our motley crew, we do have quite a bit. And then we can carry on both ships about 20 scientists. And so we're able to staff for the duration of our missions. The Pacific Ocean doesn't always live up to her namesake. Can get kind of rough up there sometimes, yeah. It does get a bit hairy, on occasion. But we get there fine, and they're good ships. By the way, I'm Clooney. So we get there. We finally make it to the island. 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, sometimes up to 10 days to get up to Curie. All right, island's in sight. Great. But now the next challenge is getting on the beach. And of course, this is Curie. Very, very often it's very calm and nice and peaceful, and we can get the boats away and get them ashore. But we do occasionally run into high surf. I've been on the predecessor to this study, the Townsend Cromwell. We circled Lay Sand for 5 days waiting for the surf to come down. Just, launching boats every day. Can't get in, can't get in. This is actually the calm side of the island this day. This day was and so I guess just back up a little bit. When we were deciding what we wanted to do this talk, they said, well, you know what? Tell stories about what we're dealing with up there. And so this day was, it was breaking in about 15 feet on the side where we usually drop people off. So we had everybody hump all the gear over to the lee of the island, and we were dealing with probably about 4 to 5 foot chop, onshore winds, and all this fun stuff. And it's a rocky shoreline, and we actually never ended up getting people off. And so we take a very safe approach to this. We don't want to get people hurt. We ended up saying, you know what, you guys are safe on the island. We're safe on the beach. We're safe on the ship. We're going to wait till the thing calms down. So that's kind of the approach we usually take. But we do encounter high surf, and even on a normal day, on Mokumanamana and NWHI, we're doing landings on beaches, or on reef, on rock. There is no beach on Mokumanamana. There is no beach. There's no white sand on the island. On NWHI, there's a white sand beach, but it takes surf constantly. I've landed on the beach a couple times with a jet ski, but you can't get a boat in. And so when we're dropping gear off, we have to actually come up into the bay here and ride the waves up. And I have a video of it, which you'll see. And the technique here is the waves are coming at you from behind. All right, so you got an inflatable boat, you got all your gear stage and all your people stage, and as the swell comes in, you ride the swell up and you pin the bow of the boat onto the rocks as high as you can, and then people jump until the swell starts receding again, and then you got to back the boat off, and then you just keep doing that up and down to get people onto the beach. So let's see how they do here. And that's the west side of the island, sheer cliffs. And so here they are, they're making their approach, the rocks. This is a rather rough day, actually. So you come up, pin, come up again, some more gear. As much as you can until the wave washes out, and back off again, and back up. Yeah, I think they dropped that one, didn't they? So it gets a little exciting, and that's a normal day. I mean, that's what we deal with a lot of the times. That was a little bit rougher than normal, but yeah. So like I said, getting boots on the ground is very challenging. But once you get there, then the work begins. I'm just going to play this video. Let's see what happens here. So there's our ship. This looks like the SETI, actually. So everything gets taken off the ship, put into our small boats, and then the boats get taken ashore. There's no channels, there's no docks, there's no nothing there. You're just coming up through the reef, getting onto the islands. We load gear, we load our people. Life jackets and hard hats. And closed-toed shoes. Gotta have shoes on. So the saying here when you're climbing down the Jacob's Ladder like that is take your time, but don't hesitate. Get down there, wait for the boat, and once you're going to make your move, you got to go. Don't want to hesitate there. We've had people fall between the boat and the ship before. We've had people fall outboard before. We've had gear go over the side. Yeah, it can get pretty hairy. This is actually a really nice day. It doesn't look too much swell going. This is Laysan Island. So our bulky gear are in the pallet tubs. Our smaller gear are in action packers and buckets. Camp tables, these are all the water jugs, all the drinking water that they're going to need for 3 months. That's our living tents. And this is time lapse over 1 day, by the way. So. The minute stuff goes onto the island, the animals claim it. It's theirs. And you can see the ship back there. That's the SETI. And we do that 6 times during the cruise. 6 different sites. Some of them are a little bit easier than others. All right, so camp setup. You know the yeah.
How do you get the large boxes we saw put into the rib onto the beach?
You got to unpack them. Yeah. So you pop the lid off and take everything out, carry it up the beach. Take the box out, carry it up the beach.
That's all the box on the beach.
Yeah. By hand. Everything by. Once you leave the ship, everything's by hand. Yeah. I always thought. I don't know if I used to watch those Chinese kung fu shows, right? And one of the trainings was they had to carry the pails of buckets with the spikes under their arms up the steps, as training. And I always thought, training for kung fu, you got to carry those water jugs all the way up the beach. And you got to come back, you get to the next 2, and you got to carry them all the way back up. Felt like that Greek god Atlas, constantly pushing the. I tell you what, the best day in field camp is the day after you're done setting up camp. Because then you can start working and you can start doing your science. I thought this was a fitting quote from Thoreau, from Alden. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. And working in the Northwestern Hawaiian Islands is very much that. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn what's important. You appreciate toilets that go flush at night. Light switches, that light that switches on with the flick of a finger. You don't have to pump a comb and lantern up, or change a mantle out in the dark because you didn't do it during the daytime. Jeff Kobara used to always tell me as I was coming back every year, he told me once, he said, there's something different about you every year when you come back. And it's just, I think it's solitude. I mean, you have to be comfortable with yourself. There's 2-3 people on the island with you. Some people don't like it. Some people can't take it, It's a scary thing to be in your head all day long, right? And so, so that it's a wonderful place. It really made me grow up, going out there. I started my first year I was 21 years old, stuck in the middle of nowhere on a deserted island. Very, very, very good experience, really. One thing you realize when you're there is you become part of the wildlife, whether it's birds to the seals, even in the water. This people always ask me about this photo. I was actually standing in the water when I took this photo. I just jumped off the boat, was walking to shore, it was a bit about chest deep water, had my camera above my head, and at the last minute I saw the shadow coming at me, and I knew it was a shark, and I thought, well, I can't get back to the boat, I'm not going to make it to shore, I might as well take a picture of the one that bites me. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on what perspective you're looking at, the bird landed, and he went after the bird instead. So, and usually someone asks, did the bird make it? Anybody? It depends. If you were a bird person, then yes, the bird survived. If you're rooting for the shark, then the bird died. Shark got a good meal out of it. So, story changes depending on your perspective. And then there's 4 stages that usually you go through when you're getting out there. First time especially. The stage 1 is, oh, there's wildlife here. And, when you see a big 14-foot tiger shark swimming through your bathing area, it's a little unnerving at first, But he's happy. He saw a shark his first day. These, I don't know if you can tell, they're just flies. And there's flies everywhere. There's a lot of dead things out there, and there's flies everywhere. And you just kind of live with them. And you take a bite of your apple, you put it down, and then you pick it up, and you brush the flies off, and you take another bite. That's just the way you live. So there's realizing that there's wildlife there. Then the wildlife realizes you're there. That's step 2. Oh my God, okay, how am I going to deal with this? And they sneak up on you when you're not looking. That was an interesting day. We were actually looking at the seal on the other side of the berm there. And of course, you have to remember the Rodney King, right? He said, if I'm getting beaten up, put the camera down and help me. Our third campmate was sitting there laughing her butt off, taking these photos as watching the seal come up behind us. And then there's annoyance, because now they're stealing stuff off of your face. They're taking your slippers from the front of your tent and running down the beach. I've lost hats from birds. I've had my sunglasses taken off my face by a bird. Right? So there's a little annoyance there, and you go, okay, and if you walk through the wrong area and you don't realize it, there's nests, they'll come and they'll peck your head. Well, it's very irritating. And there's annoyance, so that's 3. Right? That's step 3. And then finally, you get to step 4, is just acceptance. Because there's nothing else you can do about it.
Especially being your hat.
Yeah. So the wildlife is there. One of our bigger risks that we deal with out there is handling animals, and part of working with the seals is we have to capture them on occasion, either to tag or to disentangle or things like that. This is actually a photo of Kermit. DB knows this Remember we were chasing him around for weeks with that hook in his mouth? Yeah, this is on White Plains. But I thought I like this photo my parents are up here, by the way, mom and dad. And dad grew up on the Big Island in the plantation, the sugarcane plantations, and he used to go hunting. And so one day I asked him, they hunt pigs with dogs, right? I said, so what kind of dogs did you use? You use the pedigrees? And he told me, no, you can't use the pedigrees. You have to use the dumb poi dogs. The pedigree ones won't chase the pigs. You got to get the dumb dogs to chase the pigs. And I always looked at this picture and went, who's the pedigree here? And who's the guy trying to get on this big 500-pound animal? And so that kind of always made me laugh. One of the big, when we talk about risk, Marley Breeze was the curator of marine mammals at Sea Life Park, and we used to have seals there, so we used to work there and work closely with Marley. And she used to always tell us, and of course they had sea lions and everything else, right? She used to always tell us, you can always recapture an animal, but you can't get unbitten. And that's kind of what we always say, all right. There's obviously different degrees. If the animal's in distress, then we would push a little harder. But if it's just to tag an animal or to put an instrument on an animal, or you can always recapture the animal, but you can't get unbitten. And that goes for the animal too. You don't want to hurt the animal. And so when we talk about risk in animal handling, if it's tagging a wiener or an unidentified seal or instrumentation, there's the critter cam there that we put on the animal. Human safety is utmost, and we always risk to probability of mission success to get the animal safely, to get everybody back safely so we don't get hurt. Animal safety is next. We don't want to do more harm, even if it is an animal that's compromised, maybe with a hook in its mouth or maybe sick and we want to get samples or something like that. We don't want to do more harm. And then the data is third on our hierarchy of list, but we want to make sure we collect, because that's what we're doing here. That's our goal. Does that mean something? Okay. So again, it's a risk assessment, and we do this, and no matter if it's the first seal of the day, capture of the day, the last seal capture of the day, this last seal capture of a project, we do briefings. We make sure everybody knows what their roles are. A while back, we were handling lamb chop. She was a monk seal at Sea Life Park, and she's been in captivity for a long time. It was our annual physicals, so we were just going to go and get blood. By the way, you guys, DB, I keep saying this. You got to start giving these seals tougher names, because it's hard to be tough when I say I got bit by lamb chop or I got bitten by Kermit. So anyway, lamb chop. Yeah. So anyway, I digress. So we were going in, right? And the way we do this is we use Valium. We don't use tranquilizers. We use Valium on the seals. It's safer. It doesn't put them out. It doesn't knock them out, but it makes them kind of dopey, right? Sleepy.
Use Valium.
Valium, yeah, diazepam. No, and it's all oral or IV, right? So for the seals in captivity, we feed them they feed their fish in the morning. We'll put our Valium pills in the fish, feed them to them. They swallow it. We wait 45 minutes. We let them metabolize. They get all kind of sleepy, and then we go in and we grab them and we work them. And so we did that. We gave them the fish. We went back. We're sitting outside drinking coffee. 45 minutes, time to go. And 4 of us plus the veterinarian, all experienced handlers. 4 experienced handlers, highly experienced handlers, experienced veterinarian. We go in. We file into the enclosure. We try and catch her. For about 15 minutes, we were just wrestling with her, trying to get her under control. Couldn't get her under control. She's got the advantage because it's just slippery. It's in a pool, right? We're just rolling. I got bit on my chest. My colleague got bit on the inside of his leg. Finally, at about 15 minutes, we said, we're done. Something's wrong. We're not doing it. So we get out. And so we went outside and we debriefed. And during our debrief, we realized that every one of us, as we were walking into that enclosure, thought, this doesn't look right. She looks too awake. Something's not right. But nobody said anything. And we just followed. I call it the lemming behavior. We just followed. The guy in front of us kept going. So we're going to keep going. Okay, it doesn't look right, but I'm going to keep following this guy. And we got hurt. And we could have hurt the animal. Right? And so at that point, we adopted a risk assessment mentality. And so we assess everything. We debrief. We brief. Make sure everybody knows their roles before we do any type of handling. Just so that we avoid that type of situation. So anyway, that's kind of my soapbox. when we talk about animal handling, because it is one of the riskier things we do in the field. And of course, we're 7-10 days out, so we can't just call the hospital and go, we're coming in, right? So we want to minimize the amount of injuries we get. We do get them, but we do get bitten. One of the more, and then so like I said, how that balance changes a little bit when we got a critical, But then again, you really rarely will find a situation where you have to act immediately. There's always time to stop and go, okay, what are we dealing with here? This is not going to kill that seal right there. We might have time to get it. The more we deal with, of course, we don't have much of this incidental fisheries interactions out there because there's no fishing out there, but this is actually from a main island hooking. We're finding that a lot of times we'll go in and get them if it's safe, if it's safe to do so. Sandy beach, no rocks. But this isn't immediately life-threatening right now. In fact, a lot of times they'll spit it themselves. We got, what was that guy at Kind of Point that got hooked? Kayana. He's got hooked 6 or 7 times already. He's thrown 4 of them by himself. We went in and got 2 of them out, but it's not immediately life-threatening. And so we have some time to make sure we plan. We don't want to be rushing in, to bad situations because it's bad for the animal too. This was a hawksbill turtle that washed up right up to my feet on Poland Hermes. And I saw a pile of debris there, and I looked down and I said, "Oh, look, a pile of debris." And I picked up the debris to pull it up the beach to get it out of the water, and I realized there was a turtle in it. And so we cut the turtle free. He went off. And when I talk about safety for the animals also, if we're catching them on, if it's a rocky area with ledges and reef, there's a good chance that the animal could get hurt. The animal swims the wrong way and whacks its head on the rock. We've had that happen, and they crack their skull. So again, it's a risk assessment, and it's a risk assessment based on mission success, not simply safety for humans. We want to make sure the animals are safe and all that stuff too. Okay. But the good news is, and we recently looked at this, direct intervention accounts for about 30% of the current population. So all of the ones, whether it's directly saving an animal, from untangled debris or the offspring of the animal, we looked at every single time we intervened, and that has resulted in 30% of the current population. So significant. We didn't realize it was that good. So we try and do what we can when we can. There are some times, though, when you have to go in and make quick decisions. Here's one of them. This was at Curie. And we saw a net floating out there. Decided to go check it out. It's a beautiful day at Curie. So hot that day. There was no wind. Water was great. And we find a little wiener tied into that net there. And fortunately, we were there. And I was able to cut him out of that. There he goes. And then we eventually recovered that pile of net. But, so there are times we have to move in rather quickly. But again, safety first.
What's your argument that?
Huh?
Is that Japanese net?
Oh, no way to know. No way to know. There's these huge aggregates. They just get all bundled up together. It's hard to tell. So that's animal handling, entanglements. Another big risk is, and recently we've had to deal with a lot of this, as you guys all have had to deal with a lot of them too, is we've had storms, tsunamis, hurricanes. This is the energy wave from the Japanese tsunami. And this is Hurricane Loki. And I put these two up here because these two caused us concern, obviously. Tsunami hitting to the northwestern Hawaiian Islands. The direction, from what I understand, talking to the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center folks, the direction of the Japan tsunami was such that the northwestern Hawaiian actually took a lot of the energy out. There was some sea level changes here, but we saw significant wave action. Inundation, up to 500 meters inland, some places. Yeah, lay sand. You could actually see when we got there again, see where the wave came through. This is Hurricane Loki. Actually, Jesse made this figure out, but you can see where it actually turned into a hurricane as it passed over Pearl and Hermes. And there's Lizzie and there's Lisan, and we actually had people out there. And so, you know, and the distance is significant, right? So a lot of times we're sitting there in our offices, and I'm going, Jesse, which island do we get? Because we can only get one of them off. The others are going to have to shelter in place. And based on where the ship is, based on what our resources are, you know, that's the kind of hard decisions we have to make sometimes. Is we can only get one team, so which one do we like the best? Shh, don't tell them.
So the trick is to have some borrow some money off of it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, actually, bribe me. Yeah.
Oh.
I take.
Borrow money off.
Yeah. This, and I want to talk about this one because this was significant. Because when we talk about logistics in the Northwestern Hawaiian Islands, it really is a huge network that we're dealing with here, especially when we're dealing with natural disasters and human safety. We've had to medevac people for injuries, for illnesses. We had hygiene is a difficult thing to maintain out there. There's bird poop everywhere. You're sifting seal poop. You know, you're doing necropsies. I had one staff one year where within the matter of 36 hours, she went from coherent, fine, to completely delirious, couldn't keep anything down. She couldn't even throw up anything because she was so dehydrated. We had IVs in her trying to keep her. Fortunately, there was just one of our ships nearby. They were able to medevac her off. She ended up having salmonella. She got salmonella out there. So, you know, we do have medevacs on occasions. We do evacuate on occasions. We do preemptive. And a lot of times, especially with the hurricanes, when they're coming, you got 3-4 days. But, you know, we have to, so we'll preemptively pull people off the island. And we have to make a decision 3-4 days out. So we don't know if the hurricane's going to hit them or not, but we got to pull them out because we have the opportunity to do it. And so we'll get them out of the situation fast. This one was interesting. It's true, you don't have to go home, but you just have to leave sometimes. Get on a ship. Get on a ship, you can get away from a hurricane. You know, stay at sea, it's the safest place, right? Get them off to another one of the islands. This is the main Hawaiian Islands. This is the Northwestern Hawaiian Islands up here. This is Super Typhoon Genevieve, Isel, and Julio. You guys remember this from last year, right? And we had 3 hurricanes, right? And they're all kind of converging on the Northwestern Hawaiian Islands. And so Jesse and I sat down and went, okay, what do we do? We got to get them out of there. It might be a hurricane. Just so happened, RIMPAC was just finishing up at that time. And so my first call is usually to one of the ships. The ships are in the area. We knew no one was in the area. Then it's Coast Guard. Do you guys have a cutter, or do you guys know of any vessels in the area that can assist? And then Pacific Fleet. And we got the Pacific Fleet and the Coast Guard, and they started talking, and they said, hey, you know what? We've got a amphibious ready group heading towards parts unknown. It was top secret. They couldn't tell me where they were heading, but they're nearby, and we can turn them around for you. And so we decided at about 11 o'clock on the first day that we're going to evacuate. 36 hours later, we had an entire amphibious group standing offshore of those islands, ready to pull these folks off. And it was at one point at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm on the phone with the Admiral of the Pacific Fleet, and he's asking me, do you want me to turn the ships around? I'm going, oh my God, sure, if you want to. And so in this situation, and with the collaboration with the other agencies, with all the other groups, we were able to get all 3 islands evacuated. Where if it was only one ship, we would have only probably gotten one, you know. And so there's Super Typhoon Genevieve. I think that's a pretty picture. It was a big storm. And so this is the morning of. And and we're on satellite phone calls with them, giving them updates, right? You know, but this happened. I mean, they had 24 hours really, and only about 12 hours of daylight to get ready to leave. So they left with what they had on their back, basically. And I got a call from the field camp leader at one of the islands, and she said, "There's a aircraft carrier offshore. Is that for us?" And I said, "Yeah, you should get on that." And so they sent the ships in, got them. It was kind of rough that day, apparently, on some of the islands. I think that's late Saturday. Oh, that's Pearl and Hermes, actually. They put them back to the ship, and they got them safely up onto the ship. Now, literally with the clothes on their back. I mean, he didn't even have shoes on there, but they got them off. And we thought, great, that's good, they're safe. Well, you know what they decided? Instead of transiting to Midway with the ships, they said, well, let's get them all to Midway on Osprey, right? And so they got helicopters, brought all the field cameras from the islands onto the Macon Island. They put them on, they suited them all up, they loaded them up, tied them all in, and then they landed them in Midway. So within, I think it was about 8 hours or 9 hours from when they left the island, they were standing on Midway. And then Jesse and I flew up in a Gulfstream to go pick them up and brought them all home. I think the next day almost. Yeah. So yeah, it can get pretty exciting. But they collapsed everything, tied it all down, and then when we have our normally scheduled cruise that was supposed to go pick them up, we went back up and checked everything. And fortunately, none of the storms actually hit, so it actually survived.
They could be redeployed out there.
At that point, we had no idea what the condition of the islands were. We had no idea what kind of gear was left. It was too risky at that point to put them back out there because we didn't know how much supplies they would have, things like that. So it was just a matter of let's sit and wait, and then we'll go back out on the ship and go finish up.
We have a hard time next time with hurricanes and try to up that.
Yeah, well, this year we actually preemptively removed folks in front of a hurricane too, and we had 2 of our ships in the area, and they were able to get all the islands. No, I wanted to go up there. I was trying to figure out a way that I can get onto the ship and go do a fly. And so we talked about people, safety and the challenges of getting up there. Some of the things that we deal with the SEALs, and recently we've had a lot of success with this, is translocation rehabilitation. And so where we'll actually take SEALs from one island where there's low juvenile survival and move them to another island where the juvenile survival rates are higher. The hardest parts for a SEAL is the first 3 years of their lives. Good survival rate on island from the time they wean their mom, or the mom weans the pup, to the first year is about 75%. Some of the islands are way below that. And so we'll take them from areas of low survival and we'll move them to hopefully give them a better chance. And then we got to be careful because we don't want to overburden the feeder island, right? And so here is another video of translocation. So we start with capture, and then we want to make sure they're healthy enough to move. So we'll do a whole health screening before we decide we're going to move them. It's like the natives bringing their catch back, right? So this is a newly weaned seal, healthy, or at least fat still. We'll put satellite tags on them so that we can actually track when we move an animal. We want to make sure they stay around the island, where we leave them. They're not going offshore. So we'll put satellite tag on them so that for at least for the first 3 months or so, we'll be able to follow them. So this was captured on French frigate shoals, which in this year had a very low survival rate. So we're trying to get, I think we got 6 seals that year from French frigate, and we moved them. No, I take it back. These is only 2. We only got 2 this year. It's a number of things, El Nino or global warming, fisheries interactions. Yeah, it's a number. It could be anything. It's hard to pick one thing that you can say that's because. So that's on the ship, and we present food. Hopefully they'll eat, but they don't really have to. They go for other. And you can see the satellite tag there. $10 knots, slow going. So there's an island in the background there, right at sunrise. They're pretty cool. As soon as you put them in the net, they just kind of fall asleep. It's like just sleeping in a hammock. Of course, you got to take snacks for the people on the island. So ice cream is always a good. Cookies. And they pretty much sleep.
How much do they weigh?
These guys are probably about 150 pounds, maybe. Yeah, they're beefy. Yeah. They're born at about 40 pounds, and in that 6 weeks of nursing, they'll gain as much as they can from mom. It's really fun to watch. You can actually see a mom and pup nursing. You see the transfer of energy. Mom just gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and the pup just gets fat.
Are they male and female?
I don't remember.
Two are female.
These two are female? Oh, that's right. They were females at this time, yeah.
But you take them.
Now we do, depending on their health. Yeah. The ones that are really compromised, we'll bring back. And we tried to put them back down together. We figured as soon as we let them go, they're just going to go in opposite directions. But these two actually stuck around together for a while. Yeah. Their cuteness is really what's going to save them. They're lucky they're cute. I think those have TDRs on them, so they have depth recorders too. Yeah, those are TDRs on them. We have new tags that are actually use cell phones, so it uses the cell towers, and so the seals are actually calling us now, telling us where they are and what they're doing. Of course, they won't work in the Northwest Islands. There's no cell towers there, but in the main islands, yes. That island was probably 60%, something like that. It was much better than French Riga Shoals that year. So that's what was the decision of moving them over.
What kind of a test do you want to do? You've got to sample them and make the decision right there.
Sure.
You don't have a lot of sophisticated lab stuff.
What we do, actually, we have it on the ship. We'll take all the blood samples back to the ship and run,
So within like a couple hours?
Yep, usually, yeah. Usually within an hour or so we can get it. We'll know if there's any disease, any significant, problems. And so if you remember back to a couple slides back, we talked about translocation. That was translocation. We also do rehabilitation now. Kikaiola, the Marine Mammal Center out of Sausalito, nonprofit group, raised, I think it's 3.5 million, something like that, to build a Monk Seal Hospital. And it's a beautiful facility. And so now we were able to bring sick juveniles and sick weaned pups, or undersized, maybe they got left early, they didn't get their full nursing from their mom. We can bring them back, and we have volunteers and staff at the facility from the Marine Mammal Center that actually will feed them, fatten them back up, and then we can take them back up and put them back out on the Northwestern Islands. And so the most recent candidates, Pearl and Hermes, they were captured at Pearl and Hermes, so once they got their name. These are the two. They're adorable, aren't they? So Cape Iola, to date, we have successfully rehabilitated and released 8 juvenile seals. The most recent 2, Pearl and Hermes, went up. Jesse just took them back up on the SETI and put them back at Pearl and Hermes. And we brought 4?
There's 7 there now.
There's 7 now. So there's 7 animals right now. So this is the biggest group at one time they've had there, I think. We have 7 animals there now. So that's wrong. Yeah, that should be 7. So, and I think that's Pearl and Hermes. So that was right before they got released. So they got really nice and fat.
So do you put them back where you got them?
Yes, we want to put them back where
What
they.
if it's a low survival?
If it is, then we'll reevaluate and potentially move them to somewhere different. I think for the most part, we put everybody back where we got them.
Last year, there was one that we captured from Midway that we brought to Lake San instead.
Yeah.
And so the Hermes comes from last year went to Lake San also.
Okay.
Other than that, they won't have.
Yeah. So yeah, we make that assessment. We want to put them back where we got them from, but again, we want to give them the best chance of survival. So. And I think that's it. So yeah, that's kind of what we do. Any questions? Any other questions?
So
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
At the risk of going into the weeds,
Uh-huh.
where I should, many years ago, I read some articles about scientists who were looking at the feeding behavior and what figures juveniles responded to, since they are never taught by the mother how to fish.
Oh, right.
You know, as to
Mhm.
what part of it's genetic, and they were getting
Mhm.
into the visual system and looking at that.
Mhm.
Has anybody done anything?
Not that I know of.
Or-
Yeah, we know they figure it out.
Oh,
You know, for the most part, I guess. But that's true. So back to the reproductive biology of this. The moms will nurse. They're not like other pinnipeds where there's a little bit of learning going on. There's basically 6 weeks, and they nurse for 6 weeks. And almost, you can set your watch by it. And at 6 weeks, mom goes, "I'm done, hungry," and she takes off and weans, and the pup is left to fend for itself. So the objective of the pup is really to get as much from mom, so that in that next few months, as it's learning what to eat, it's feeding off. So the pups actually lose a lot of weight that first year. They'll go from really fat to these really thin animals, and while they're learning how to feed. Yeah. No, I don't know, and I think that was at least a collaborator for us that was doing that. Yeah. I don't remember exactly who that was, but they do learn. They'll start with sea cucumbers and rocks and debris and all
So
that
they
kind of
do.
stuff.
They
They'll just like any animal, any young animal, they'll mouth. They'll pick stuff up. They'll. You have a question?
yeah, I'm kind of fussed with what you're saying, because all the pups and the moms that I monitored, it seems like they do go out
They might go out and
And they-
swim. Yeah.
and poke around, and it seems like the moms kind of try to get them to go out. And,
They'll do like swim. They'll go out for a swim and whatnot. But really, what they're feeding on is not near shore anyway. So yeah, most of it's deeper. So very little. Let me say that. Like very little
So the mom does
teaching.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very little teaching. It's
Yeah.
basically
Yes.
I wonder if the behavior in the main rhinos and the northwestern rhinos are a little different because the locations are different.
Could be.
Are the seals here also, do they also go out and to feed, or do they do more near shore feeding?
Well, we're doing a lot of critter cam. Well, we're doing a lot of critter cam work. We do a lot of satellite tagging. We're just now getting a sense of where the animals are moving to and feeding. Yeah. Of course, the seals here are much bigger. The weaners are weaning at a much bigger girth. That's kind of how we, the morphometrics of we're looking at is the girth. So yeah.
That's a question, so with the tourists that, so they ask you, like, since you don't actually go up and weigh them, how do you estimate the weight? If you actually go up and carry them for some reason, you just kind of eyeball the weight.
We can't. A lot of And that's really critical, especially when we're sedating animals. We want to make sure we get the dose right. Of course, that's why we use Valium, because it's a very safe drug. But after, we can kind of eyeball it and go, okay, that's 120 kilos, that's 200 kilos. But if we have the opportunity to, we'll put them in those stretcher nets and put them on. The first thing we do is put them on a scale, and then okay, we need exactly this much Valium, And so that's kind of where we. So just after years of just weighing them, and okay, yeah, it's about the same size as the 120 kilo one we weighed earlier.
So how much does each dose cost?
Oh, that's a good question. It's about the NOAA ships cost approximately $25,000 a day to run. Yeah.
Just the ship?
Just the ship, yeah, just the ship. Our monk seal camps, all the food and water and supplies and salaries and everything for 3-4 months. It's not a small figure. Yes.
So when you're talking about this date of the weighing and all of that stuff, you're basically talking about the seals that are out on the Northwest Islands?
Any seal we would handle, or we would do.
You know what I'm saying, that when you're saying that they weigh a certain amount or would lose weight after weaning?
I think that's a general. Most of the pups would do that. Yeah. Would lose some weight after weaning while they're learning to feed. Even here. But like I said, the seals, the weaners here, it's looking at seals here and looking at seals in Northwest Islands is so different. Yeah, I mean,
the pups that are born up in Turtle Bay,
very
big,
fat.
and they get bigger.
Very fat, yeah. So.
I have another question. I don't know if it's, can you surmise or conclude at all that if there were not this tiny population, if there was sort of a normal population of the seals, would they still be solitary as opposed to congregating the way other seals do? That's
a hard question. I don't know, and a lot of that could be like the Mediterranean monk seals. They moved from beaches and they got pushed off the beaches, and now they live in caves.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know. Definitely.
We don't really know if that's just species behavior or environment.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking, 50,000 years ago, what the population was, I don't know if we could say. But in the period that we've been looking at them, that's their normal behavior. And that's common with the other monk seal species. That was common with the other monk seal species too.